Nice.
So we got around. But that's part of what we're talking about.
Yep.
You had to. You had to become adventuresome to try new things, or you were just going to be stagnant with nothing.
Yep. So how many of these deer are kind of the local suburban deer?
That was number 2 for like 5 years.
Yep.
It would have been number 1, but see, that kicker was 1 1/8".
Yep.
So this was 1 inch smaller than number 1 at the time. But that 1 1/8" dropped me 1/8 below him. It's a deduction.
Mm-hmm.
And that was shot in Harwich. The other one, the number 1, was Harwich.
Yep. What year was that?
86, I think.
86.
86 or 89, but
144 instruments.
yeah, Cummington.
So by 86, were the deer starting to come around?
Just about.
Yep.
Just about starting to come. And we look into deer. We try to do everything to get educated in it. And what brought them here? It's a good question. I know what got rid of them in Maine was coyotes, basically. That's my opinion, right? But what brought them here, and everybody's got the same theory, is that housing started, so they started to push them into smaller and smaller area. But even at that, we still should have seen deer driving around. And everybody's involved with deer hunting. We should have seen more deer than we did, we'll say like from the 50s to the 80s.
Yep.
But it was a rarity to see them.
Yeah.
That's Kentucky over there.
This one with the big neck?
All of those.
All of those there?
That's me.
Yeah, that looks like a big Maine deer.
That's a Maine one here.
Yep.
The Big Buck Club.
Yep.
Oh, this was British Columbia, and this was the last road on a river where everybody was gold mining. And this one guy would come into town and pay with gold, even though he was a trapper. And then they wouldn't leave him alone, so he ended up getting a fight, and he killed somebody in a fight. And his camp that was like 11 miles from the river, we found that. My friend found it when he was 15. And we went back in there, and someone had ransacked it, and this was like 100 yards away from the camp. So I got the permit to take it out of there and to bring it back home. So it scores about 240. So a nice drop time.
Is that a whitetail?
It's a mule deer.
Yeah.
Wish it was a whitetail.
It looks like I can't tell what it is.
I know. Awesome.
Wow. How much you selling that for?
I don't know. That's the whole thing. Got to get educated. What's something worth? And of course, if you put something like that on the internet, nobody cares because they want to know what it is. They don't know what it's worth.
Yeah.
I'll come up with a price eventually.
All right. In this episode of the podcast, the first podcast from the new Hunt Suburbia Podcast studios, we are interviewing Larry Davis. He's been hunting the suburbs of Massachusetts since the early 50s. He's 84 years old. He's a man with a lot of knowledge. He's got great morals. And he's just, you can tell he's a great sportsman, cares about the right things in life. So we talk about how the suburbs have changed over the years, how the populations of deer have flipped from being in mostly big woods to now the bigger populations being in the suburbs. We get into why we think that may be the case. We talk about all kinds of stuff from deer hunting to family to the origins of bow hunting, the early years bow hunting up in Vermont for whitetail deer, talk a little bit about elk hunting, but mostly we stick to deer. But it is my sincere pleasure to, first of all, be doing a podcast in the new studio. We put a lot of work into this place, but to have a great hunter with a lot of history and knowledge in Larry Davis to be the first guest, that's great. So this might not be the final iteration of the studio. We still got plenty of work to do in here, but for now, I think this set looks pretty good. Hopefully you guys enjoy this podcast. Let's get into it. Here is Larry Davis. All right, we've got another episode of the Hunt Suburbia Podcast, and we are doing the first one from the new studio. Been working hard on this thing. This probably isn't its final form, but I think for now we've got a good-looking set here. What do you think, Larry?
Yep, it's like being in an old hunting barn, isn't it?
Yep, exactly.
And it worked out good. I mean, it's effective, and I know it's going to help lighting or whatever.
Yep.
And gives you the effect of being somewhere other than a big studio somewhere.
Exactly, and we're in a city here, but and you walk through the halls and everything's whitewashed everywhere. There's a narrow hallways, and all of a sudden you come in and you kind of feel like you're in a cabin.
Right.
That was the.
Being old, this was like being back in our house way back when I was 2 or 3. This is what it kind of looked like. Because actually we lived in a place that was called Cardboard Village because of the buildings that were there weren't quite what you'd expect nowadays. But we lived right alongside Herd Swamp and the Herd's Pond in Wayland.
Yep.
And so that gave us first taste of being outdoors because my 4 brothers and I actually slept in a chicken coop. So it became the norm.
Really? That was your childhood bedroom, was the chicken coop, or you just did it for fun?
Oh, yeah, we did it. Back those days, you didn't know any different.
Yeah.
We didn't know we were poor.
Yeah.
We were just like everybody else, right?
I grew up with a chicken coop in my backyard too, and I always fantasized about that being the room.
What, living there?
Yeah, it's like, this is cool. I'll just go into the backyard and live in the chicken coop.
Yeah,
2
we
rooms.
didn't fantasize. We did it. Yeah, my father just put some plywood on the side of the wall with some 2x4s, and that was the bed. But it was a good time.
Yep. Oh yeah.
5 boys running around. We had a great time. And outdoors, we weren't near any traffic, and it was just great. But we're going to be talking about suburban deer here. But
Oh yeah.
even living out there, my childhood, I don't remember ever seeing a deer. They just weren't here.
Yep.
It's,
Yeah, we'll talk about that. I guess I'll give the introduction first, though. We've got Larry Davis. I hear people call you Butch, right?
Yep.
Butch.
That's my way back name. When I got into business, I had to be something else besides Butch.
Yep.
But actually now I'm Baldy, so
Hey, me too.
Butch worked.
Yeah. So Larry, 84 years old, still hunting strong. Got a couple deer last year. We'll talk through all this stuff, or a deer. I don't know. We'll talk through last season, but you're in really good shape. We were just talking on the way over here. Never smoked a cigarette in your life. Probably has something to do with it too, right? And just being in the outdoors.
Right.
Yeah.
Actually couldn't afford it. You had to buy a hunting license when you turned of age back then, and money wasn't easy to come by. So I think the average wage back there when I first started getting 15, 16, I think the average wage was like 70 cents an hour, something like that. So, and a license was, I remember, it was $3.25.
Jeez, that's steep.
That's steep. Right? Things are now, but when you don't have it, it's pretty tough.
So why don't we talk? So your son reached out to me, and he was like, "Yeah, you want to talk to somebody who's been living and hunting in the suburbs, been around the suburban area of Boston for a long time, and can speak on the knowledge of what's changed from the deer herd." Recommended to interview you. So what has changed? Like when did you first? What do you remember about the suburbs back in the day? This area that we live in now, and how is it different?
Well, we'll say in the 50s, for example, I lived in northern Framingham, and I could walk from my house to Knobscott Mountain in Sudbury and cross one road, basically, because the Pinefield Golf Club was there, the golf course, and just woods. And I did tours for the Navy Yard. They used to send the Navy people out, and I would do tours and guide them from Saxonville up to Knobscott Mountain, up on top of the mountain. And back then, you never jumped a deer that I can recall. And we would go to the water holes at the base of Knobscott Mountain, and you wouldn't see any deer tracks in the mud or whatever. I'm sure there were deer here, but they just weren't that many. And coming from a hunting family, I got 4 brothers, and my uncles all hunted, my father hunted, and we would have to go somewhere else. You'd have to go to Petersham or Orange, or we used to go to Chesterfield and Cummington and drive 2 hours and get up 1:30 in the morning to go hunting opening day. And the thing that you realized back then, I think back, there would be traffic jams going on Route 122, 122A out of Worcester, heading towards Barry Falls, Petersham. It would be
From
just a line of traffic of hunters at 3 o'clock, 3:30 in the morning. And I remember one incident, somebody went to pass because I guess they got frustrated, and no one would let them in. It was just a steady line of traffic going out there. And the hunters that I talked to when I got out there, they were generally from the Boston area. They were coming from Boston, and the town that I knew, I just knew my father's friends. They hunted, but very few people hunted back then, probably legally. And you just had to travel to find deer. It made us adventuresome. We ended up eventually, going to exotic places like British Columbia and now going to Kentucky, but going to all these different places hunting because you had to do something. If it was in your blood, which it was, you had to do something. And we had like say 5 or 6 of us that hunted together, and probably in 3 years, one person got a deer locally. One person out of 7 or 8 people hunting.
Isn't that something crazy?
Yeah. And now, totally different. Now, we have them running through our yard all the time now.
Yeah.
And some decent bucks. I mean, everybody wants a big buck, right?
Yeah.
And now they're here. And what's the explanation? I don't know. I'm curious as well.
Well, there was a lot more woods back then, right?
Correct.
And what years are you talking when you were first?
Well, say I started hunting, say basically on my own intensely, was able to get around, say in 1955, 56, 57,
Yeah.
58. And we're just talking, I haven't missed a hunting season since that time. So, and we talk, and I'm sure everybody feels the same way that we do, that something happens to you, you hurt your leg or you don't feel well today. Am I going to make it through hunting season? That's all I care about. I'll deal with it afterwards. But
as long as I'm better by then.
Yeah, as long as I'm better, and I can go. It's like, and I tell people that say, why do you hunt? It's a generic question, but and it's not that I want to hunt; it's that I have to hunt. Mm-hmm. And that's a true fact. You have to hunt. It's like I could be I'm a happy-go-lucky person. I can be miserable one if I can't go hunt.
Oh yeah,
right.
It's a weird thing, isn't it? Too, where it's you don't know where that comes from. It's got to be in your DNA.
Yeah,
yeah.
I believe it. I read that all the time. The Indians I studied. I read a lot about Indians and whatever back in the day when school and whatever. If I had a choice, I'd read about something about their exploration of the country and whatever, and dealing with Indians and. Some unique things that stuck in my mind over reading that type of thing. Yeah. So I believe it is there. Look how many of us there are, and how avid everybody is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's rare to find a person that's done a little bit of hunting that isn't passionate. Do you know anybody that is half passionate?
Not really. No. No.
Right.
Not really. It's because like you said, as long as you can get into it young, but even people that are adults. I mean, some of the most passionate people right now because I'll mentor people here and there that are just getting into it as adults. They didn't have a dad or somebody that got them into it, so they're 25, 30, 35 years old, and they want to all of a sudden become a hunter, and it seems hard for them. But some of those people are the most passionate that I know.
Exactly. My brother-in-law is the same way.
Yeah.
Get a new brother-in-law because we had 4 sisters as well, and bring them hunting, and boy, to be the most passionate people you ever saw. Right?
Yep.
It's what is it about it? That's a good question. Maybe you'd have people write in and tell you what they think.
Yeah.
What is it that I took one brother-in-law, I put him on a mountain, snowed like hell, and he had dungarees on and no quilts, no nothing, just the dungarees. When I got back to pick him up and head back for the truck, he was frozen stiff. And the happiest guy I've seen in a long time.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
If you can get past the bad weather is some of my favorite time to hunt. But if you can get past the uncomfortability of it, last year my buddy Scotland, who was one of those guys, an adult onset hunter, he just started 3 years ago, but he came down last year for late muzzleloader. I tagged out on bucks. The day before he came, I shot one, tracked it up to his bed, and outlasted him waited for him 2 hours to stand up and shot him. That was the day before my buddy Scotland came down, so I was like, look at this is great. Now I can just be a guide for a couple of days with him.
Yeah.
The first day we went, it was pouring rain and windy and low 40s or high 30s, temperature wise. And I just said, look, we're going to walk all day. This is a perfect day to still hunt. And we still hunted all day long. We jumped a mature buck. I think I got his sheds actually, because I went back to that area and luckily found a set this year, and it reminded me of that buck we jumped a mature buck, so we were in the game. We didn't feel uncomfortable that whole day. Most people would think that they'd be uncomfortable. Wind blowing, pouring, literally did not relent, the rain. And we got back to the car, and we were like, we both looked at each other like, I did not feel the weather at all. I didn't think about it. It was one of the most fun days that we ever had hunting. And if you can get through that and use that mentality, then...
Yeah, and that makes it stronger. Right?
Yep.
Imagine yourself out there hunting. It's got a little bit of a fog. It's like 28 degrees, hardly any little breeze. And there's deer there, and there's not a whole bunch of other hunters all around you, and you're either sitting or you're slowly walking in that misty thing. It's unbelievable. It's a good thing to go to sleep at night with thinking about, right?
Yeah, most people aren't going to go out, so that is another thing. You have the woods to yourself pretty much on those really bad weather days, and I love that. Another thing we mentioned in the car on the way over here, as you're talking about getting into it, and what was it that got you into hunting at such a young age? I remember for me, it was always seeing my dad would go to deer camp. He'd be gone for the weekend. He looked forward to it. You could feel the energy as deer season was approaching. He was excited. He'd go to deer camp and come back, and it was a place that at a real young age, was full with adult hunters, so we couldn't go and stay out there. So it was constantly wondering, what's so great about deer camp? I can't wait until I'm old enough to get a bed out there, and that fear of missing out. And that was like, as soon as you started, I was able to go to camp, and you start getting that experience, and then you've got a bunk. From now on, as long as you stay in hunting, you don't want to give that up. And it's that feeling that was really kind of started the passion, I think, for me. And then what did you say? So how did you? I thought this is awesome.
So we got 5 boys, and they're all avid. We got one that doesn't have the opportunity as much as they used to, but the other just, as you know, 2 of our sons are game wardens. So it's the outdoors is real passionate for everybody. But when they were growing up, I'd take them, like 6 years old, take them with me, and it's worth it. Your chances of sneaking up on something isn't all that terrific, but sitting and whatever, you bring them as young as you can, and as long as they can handle the situation that you're at, and you've got to be thinking of them, not yourself. And but one little trick that we did was we'd leave one home at a young age. We'd leave one home and take everybody else and to go hunting, and they had to stay home because of a teacher or something they had to do or whatever, and they would never miss again. So that pitiful to watch them as you're leaving. And one in particular, I remember standing in the window looking at us as we drove out of the driveway. Pretty bad. But, But all of them are 100% passionate now for the right reasons. And everybody has sort of different reasons, but And starting out, of course, my uncles all born in Roxbury, Massachusetts, and our parents got out of Boston as soon as they could. Thank God they did. And all our uncles hunted, so it was something that you heard about all the time. And then back then, things were different than they are now. I was 12 years old and hunted on my own almost all the time. My father had to work, of course, to support 9 kids, but they eventually would go back to the suburbia thing. They hunted in New Hampshire, and they'd go a whole season not see a deer. This is back in the 40s and 50s.
Yep.
And then somebody one time lived in Nova Scotia, and they got to talking to a family that he still knew, and they all ended up going to Nova Scotia, and that was their exclusive hunt. They just didn't feel that it was worth anywhere else. I mean, you just weren't seeing deer, and that's why you're there, right? When you enjoy the outdoors, but still want to see something, right? And Nova Scotia turned out to be their yearly trip. On like 5 or 6 or 7 of them would get together. And what changed in suburbia? People talk about, well, it's because now there's not as much space and the deer are concentrated, but it's beyond that, because now they're concentrated. There's a lot of deer, and there are a lot of big, healthy deer. And where were they back then? They weren't spread out amongst the woods, because we would have seen them. We had a lot of passionate hunters back then, hunting different places. I would say we would have to drive 2 hours, but the deer weren't here, or people would have seen them. You would have seen them driving in your vehicle. You would have heard all these deer getting hit by vehicles. Just never did. It was not something you heard about. My son said recently that he remembers back that someone in town saw a deer track. We all got in the car, had to go look at the deer track, right? Because it just wasn't common. Someone said to you now, I saw a deer track.
Yeah.
Want to go see it?
Yeah.
No. Right. I saw a big deer, with a big rack standing
so
by the road. You want to go see it? Yeah.
So somebody saw a deer track. Didn't you leave work early to go and?
Yeah.
It's
Exactly.
Like, oh, I'm going to cancel everything in the day to go look at that deer track.
Yeah.
But what is it? Because there had to have been acorns back then, and
There were.
you know.
We had a lot of hardwood, the blights and things that have come. We had a lot of big woods, if you want to call it that.
What about maybe that's? I mean, big woods. Generally, right? There's less undergrowth and cover and stuff for bedding, and maybe it was just a mix of that. I mean, the suburbs are a perfect recipe for deer and the population to grow because it's harder to hunt in suburbs. A lot of towns you can't hunt legally, and there's lots of laws against hunting or discharging weapons, or it's private land only, and you've got to get permission and all that kind of stuff. It's going against the hunter, which is going to allow the deer to populate more. Plus, you got the edge habitat that neighborhoods and backyards and all of that provide with lush plants and diversity of plants that go along with that and the landscaping. So it's like kind of the suburbs is a recipe for explosion. It's just how did the transition happen is so weird,
I'm sure people that watch your shows, I mean, they've got an opinion. It'd be good to hear what people think that, everybody's got a different situation, right? Like I grew up in populated area. After when I got older, houses were going up everywhere, and I've got my opinion. I'm sure other people have their opinion.
Yep.
I've talked to wildlife people about it, and some of them say, well, they're there, you just don't see them. Well, I don't think so.
You would have seen tracks for sure, like you said,
And as the boys were growing up, we did a lot of video. I had carry the great big pack with the giant camera, and we would go everywhere we heard there might be some deer, and we did some around here, but it would be hard to find. I mean, you spend a lot of time. We ended up going to different places like Crane's Beach, which just so you did see something, there was a lot of deer there, and a lot of ticks there as well. But that's when we first started encountering ticks, which have become rampant now. Right? And one of the things that I use for getting permission on property is that I have a little tick program that I take that permethrin and I soak in the cotton balls in the permethrin and put them inside tubes like you get inside a roll of paper towels or whatever, and hide them where dogs can't get at them, but hide them under big stones on a stone wall and around the perimeter of the landowner's property, their home or whatever. And it's effective because I go back and those cotton balls are gone. The mice have taken them, and the mice have used them as nesting, and the permethrin, handles the tick. Because people don't realize it, but Lyme disease comes from the mouse, not the deer. So the mouse, the tick bites a mouse, gets that Lyme disease bacteria. The deer just transports it around. They call it a deer tick, but the disease itself comes from the mice. So if you can get the mice to make a nest out of that cotton, which I put out some here locally, and I put out 7. I went back like 4 days later, and 3 of the tubes were totally empty. The cotton had been taken out totally, and others had like 1 or 2 of the balls taken out. But just letting the landowner know, the homeowner, that we're doing something, rather than just take advantage of your property you pay the taxes on, right? That it helps a lot, and of course it helps them. And one person did have Lyme disease, and they were just adamant, yes, you do whatever you can, do as many as you want to, right? And their tick population has gone way down. They walk their dog, and he said he's come back times with 10, 15 ticks on him, and he says since we started doing the program, he sees a great change in the amount of ticks.
That's really cool. I'd never heard of that. And you come up with that?
Well, we thought about it because one of our sons is a wildlife biologist, and he's astute in a lot of these things. And now I see that you can buy them. You can buy them on Amazon. You can buy these little tubes with a tick deterrent in them. Right. But it works, and it's a good tool to use.
I'm going to have to do that.
And beneficial. It's not just you're taking advantage of the landowner. I mean, I'm actually doing something I believe in. No one wants to have Lyme disease.
Right.
I mean, it's debilitating. I got a sister-in-law that had it, and it affected her health immensely.
Yeah.
But you got to do something for a landowner. You can't just say, hey, I want to hunt your property that you bought.
Yeah.
You maintain, you pay the taxes. Now let me take advantage of it. You know,
Yeah.
Got to pay back somehow.
Exactly. Give them deer meat is the easiest solution if they like it.
Right. But if you can talk to the wife about the ticks and whatever, I mean, it's a good thing to do, actually.
Yep. So looking for deer back in the day, right? You'd go west, you'd go out Quabbin and west of there, and you'd go north. You did some hunting in Maine, but also Vermont. You did quite a bit of hunting in too, right? And you still do?
We don't hunt Vermont as much because now we're in northern Vermont, and 50% of the people in this area hunt. So there's no places left to go, but we still have our favorite places. We have Massachusetts, and we go to Kentucky now, and Kentucky is like old Vermont. But we used to go to like central Vermont, White River Junction, Sharon area, and it was just a huge advantage having 5 boys that are just starting to get into the outdoors and hunting. That, how do you keep track of all 5 of them, make sure that one's not at a disadvantage or lost, and feel comfortable hunting. Where we hunted was a lot of peaks and valleys, so you could hunt one ridge and just watch the other ridge. You knew where you were the whole time you were there, right? And everybody kind of had their favorite spot that they would want to go to. And the farm that we hunted on, there again, we ended up permission on that farm by helping them with one of their dogs that had taken down a deer. And we retrieved the dog for the landowner rather than him losing his dog, right? And he was appreciative of what we did. And that farm became our second home for a lot of years. I'd say 15, 16 years. And they would give us milk and whatever we wanted, but the boys would work with them when they were too young. They would work with him on, cutting logwood or whatever, and I could be in a tree stand or watching. I could see everything going on the farm. So it was a good experience for everybody. And we'd camp right there on his front lawn if we wanted to.
Yeah.
We did that for a lot of years, and then we moved into other things. By the fact of suburbia not having the animals that you needed to keep your enthusiasm up, it made you adventuresome. So we would advance. We would move out. We would try different things. We would contact a game warden in Pennsylvania and say, we want to hunt this area. Is there something you could help or show us or do whatever? And they reciprocated when we did that. And he met us and he showed us all these places. And as I said, the first place we drove up to with him showing us where we could possibly hunt, there were 24 deer in the field. Right? It's like we'd never seen that before in our life. Vermont was great, but not like that. And it evolved. So we got adventuresome because you had to, right? You could stay here and see 1 deer a year maybe, and then fight with the general public. Where in Vermont for a long time there in the beginning of hunting, everybody would go along with hunting. It was like accepted. And as we saw as you go, as you would get a deer, back in those days, you had to exhibit the deer on your vehicle as you were driving. Well, we would get, in the old days, you would get thumbs up and whatever, and be proud of what you did and not have this bad side of hunting, right? And as that evolved, you got into the 80s and whatever, you'd get a wave, but it wouldn't be the wave you wanted. Right? And that would be common.
Yeah.
It would be very common.
The beginning of the anti-hunter.
And beginning of, right. And how that evolved is how fast and how thorough that became. It's like, it's just people can't leave. We have our way of living, they have their way of living. Everybody's different. Otherwise, if people weren't different, there'd be 5,000 people at every restaurant at nighttime.
Yeah.
Right? But people are different, so it's not like that. But mind what you do, I accept what you do. Please accept what we do.
Mm-hmm.
But can't let it bother you.
No, that's
because it's getting worse. We're not getting better.
Yeah.
Kentucky's like that. We don't have any aggravation in Kentucky.
So what did you mean by Kentucky is like the old Vermont?
It's farmlands and not a lot of population, and again now hunting has evolved immensely. Where now you got to lease property. Mm-hmm. things are changing, and I think it's going to get worse than it is right now. You have to lease property, and so you kind of have things to yourself like it was in the old days. We started bow hunting in 1961, right? So Vermont back then, you couldn't hunt Sundays up until 1960. And people were saying, why don't you come to Vermont with us and hunt with us and hunt with us? And because you can't hunt Sunday, I had to work, like everybody else. I had to work during the week. And then 1961, Vermont passed the law that you can hunt Sundays, and that's when we started hunting. But we started bow hunting in 1961. And I would say we went 8 years easy without ever seeing another bow hunter.
Was there a bow season? Or
it was a bow season.
There
right?
was, and there already was, huh?
Yeah, it was a bow season. And things happened, though, in the 60s. Something that's always stuck with me. Back then, there was always talk, bow hunters are shooting everything with a gun and just saying they shot it with a bow, right? But so in 1965, Vermont, before that, you just had to go and check in your deer at the town clerk. That's how you did it. And then in 64, 65, they were shooting, I think they're shooting at 1,100 deer. I'm guessing at the numbers, but 1,100 deer in Vermont with a bow. And then they said, okay, well, now you got to check it in with the game warden. So in 64, 65, 66, you now have to, if you harvest with a bow and arrow, check with a game warden. It went up to 2,300 kill. So you say, well, that proves it. Well, it didn't prove it because that's when the compound bow came in at the same time.
Yeah.
But there was no anti-negative bow hunting, and there was no proven fact that people were shooting with guns and saying that with a bow, which they weren't anyway, because once you start hunting with a bow, you're enthusiastic about a bow. I don't care if I ever pick up a gun again, as long as my hunting is there with my bow, right? Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was like it jumped 1,000 deer. But other things back then, you didn't have tree stands, and of course we all had recurves back then, and you didn't have all of the paraphernalia that goes with it. They didn't have 10 different companies selling sites.
Yeah.
So what we did is we would generally get an area where we would put a mark on our string, and we would get an area that lined up with our natural instinct. We would mark our bow on the side, and you would put a little tiny screw in there, just a little tiny screw. That was your sights.
Yeah.
Right. But I wish back then we'd been more enthusiastic about making money off of hunting. Because if you had started making bow sights then and peep things for your ring and for your string. But we started with the very basics and just all.
So everybody was using a recurve up until about what time?
The compounds came out. And it was I think back then it was just a 2-wheel and very, very basic compound bow. But you did have the let off at the end, which is a huge advantage, Many times with a recurve trying to hold back for a minute, minute and a half, 2 minutes, you're not going to be very accurate. You have to hold on a 65, 68 pound recurve back for 2 minutes. You're lucky if you hit the moon.
Right? So those first 8 years, you said you guys didn't get a deer with a bow hunting Vermont?
No, we did.
You did?
Yeah, we didn't have tree stands, so what I made up was I made these boards with notches on them. So I'd take a 2x10 and cut a V notch on each end, and you'd sit that in there. We had different sizes. I used them all the time on this place called Lovejoy's, that we called. I had a perfect tree where that would sit there, and you stood on a board, just a board and no safety harness.
Did you have the tree between you and the deer?
No, you'd be up in the tree, or depend. You would hope that they just come right in front of you, like I was counting on coming around one mountain to come right through there. There was a pretty good run right there, but pretty rustic stuff.
Yeah.
Right? And then I think the first thing that we noticed that came out was a strap-on seat, where you just strap it on, a seat on, and fold down, and you sit on it. And then of course tree stands started, and at that time I had a sheet metal shop, and we made like 10 tree stands lock on at that time. But we used wire strapping and all that to do it. That construction strapping with all the holes in it.
Yeah.
So
you were coming up with products back then.
Yeah, out of necessity, but they were crude.
Yeah.
But to make a business out of it, might even be retired now. Who knows?
So talk about those early days a little bit. So you were what was the first bow deer that you killed? What year was it? And was it Vermont?
It was Vermont, and I think it was 62.
Yeah.
And we had some favorite places to go that were conducive. We actually had an old abandoned building, and my first old abandoned, and the walls were gone on it, and stayed inside there, and that's how I shot my first deer with a bow, was right out of that building.
Yeah.
Convenient.
Yeah.
But the boys were all spread out. My brothers were there, and we had a hell of a time, right? We stayed at a lodge. This Terrace Lodge was the name of it, and we named it Terra Lodge. But it was pretty unique. Where a lot of times we were the only people there, because bow hunting wasn't big back then.
Yeah.
And leaf peepers, people just didn't have the free leisure time like they have now. Like there'd be a million people out leaf peeping. Back then, there were some, but not many. But we had a good life back then, fishing in the rivers that were right there, and hunting. And like I say, we go years and years without ever seeing anybody else.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's changed.
Yeah.
Bow hunting's a big deal.
Yeah. Bow hunting is definitely taken over a lot. I mean, I think it was last year in Massachusetts, bow hunters killed more deer than the gun hunters did.
Yeah.
I mean, in Vermont, it's still very heavily skewed gun hunters, probably 75% and 25% killed with a bow. But, yeah, at least in Massachusetts, it's taken over. I'm sure there's a couple of states like that.
Yep. And I know back in my day, I think 38 to 4,200 deer total in Massachusetts. And we had our places, but again, we had to travel quite a ways, and a lot of competition,
Oh, yeah, because everybody had to go to the
Everybody
only
had to
place
go
where,
there,
but
yeah.
now there's deer all across the state. I think Maine, it's like that too now. And New Hampshire, I mean, there's the deer are doing well in most places.
Yeah. In Maine, when I hunted Maine up near the Lincoln area, I'd go a whole season, never see another hunter.
Yeah.
In the woods. I'd
Yeah.
see them driving, but in the woods, never see another person. And there weren't that many deer there. But when you did, every step you could see the biggest deer of your life.
Yeah.
In Maine. And
Yeah.
so that keeps you driving.
Right.
But what is the change? Yeah, simple enough to think that it's the deer are more concentrated. And people's exotic hedges, now I'm making the antlers bigger.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's just good feed. There's one of my favorite places to have a camera is in an old, nursery that years ago was a nursery, right? And it's now there's just it's so diverse because that's what a nursery is. They would grow all kinds of different trees and plants, and this place is an old, long past nursery, and it's very thick. It's hard to move in there, but there's just so much browse, and that kind of really brings to light why I think in some places the deer population's doing well and they're so healthy. I have all my cameras on video. I'm reviewing it, and you just see a nice buck come into frame, and he'll be there for 25-30 minutes eating on every tree that's in there, eating the berries off of certain bushes, and then going and eating some buds off of this and leaves here. And he just has everything that he could ever ask for.
Right.
Right in that area. So I mean that paints a good picture. That's kind of like someone's backyard is that same way. It's a diversity of landscape and different things to eat.
Because if you want to argue with the other side, people say, well, we'll take for example one town that we hunted a lot was a big apple orchard there, right? Well, there's not one apple tree there I can find anymore. So, but there are more deer now.
Yeah.
Than when the orchard was there. It's like, I don't know the explanation.
Yeah. Right.
But we got variety. We got automobiles. We can drive wherever we want to go.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a good life.
Yeah, we were talking. We've both been to Anacostia. You've been one to Anacostia a few times too. I mean, you don't have to drive somewhere. You can get on a boat or a plane and fly somewhere too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Simple. Yeah.
You can.
It's getting to cost money. It's not as simple as it used to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Anacostia is expensive now.
Yeah. Even that has changed. Right? Yeah. It used to be they only had like 11 hunting camps at one time. Now I think the last time I looked, there were almost 50 hunting camps there.
Yep.
Yeah. But you got to work with the change. You do what the change is. That's why we're in Kentucky. paying leases. We lease the property, set up all our own equipment, do our own scouting, and to be effective, you have to do those things, and someone's always trying to take the property away from you.
Yeah.
And
how do they go about doing that? Getting in with the townspeople?
Well, someone just offer more money.
Yeah.
You're leasing it, and they find out what you're leasing for, and they come in, and if you don't have a good relationship, like giving something back to the landowner, at least be friendly with the landowner. And it's simple for someone just to walk in and offer more money, and a conglomerate.
That's true.
Who leases out, and then they do the guiding. It's you stay on your toes. Connecticut, you got to get written permission. I think even on that in Connecticut, it even says that the landowner's liable for injury, right? Or I think they might have changed that way back where now that's been eliminated, but there are things that work against you that you got to be careful of. It's just more difficult now to have a easy, carefree hunt. Right? But it's still
true.
A lot of fun.
Yeah.
Still a lot.
Well, and that's one thing we deal with in the suburbs too, is because there's so many anti-hunters, and you've got to really be by the book on things, because anti-hunters will call game wardens or police on you, and just especially so in the suburbs. But that's what a lot of the Northwoods hunters will never. That's why they don't ever want to come hunt the suburbs, because they don't have to deal with that. Right. When you get up into the big woods and further north you go, and the more vast the area, you really can have your own hunt on your own terms. But and here you can too. It's just you really have to be super strategic about everything, your entries, your exits, and you got to be 100% legal all the time. But you're still going to get somebody that is a dog walker, doesn't quite understand what hunting's about, those anti-hunters, somebody in the neighborhood or whatever, seeing you and thinking you're doing something wrong. Right. And that can get in, get in your head a little bit and ruin your hunt.
There's a guy in camo with a gun going through the neighborhood. Yeah. Got, 10 cruisers are going to show up. Yeah. But a lot of places, some of the places that I hunt, I'll only hunt in the afternoon, won't hunt the morning. Suppose you wound something and it goes 100 yards and dies in front of someone's front door. Yeah. Right? Now you're there at 10 o'clock in the morning with everybody driving by, and you're dragging. But so you have to think things out. And I don't want a confrontation. Yep. I really don't.
Yeah. No, nobody does.
Nobody benefits.
So far, I've been lucky enough to not have a deer in the suburbs run into someone's yard.
Right. But it could happen.
And it will at some point. Yeah. It definitely will. But yep, they've all died in the woods. And I love hunting in the morning. I've always been a morning hunter. Right. I always have. I love getting up early and getting out there. Right. But last year I got my first deer ever in the evening. Every other deer in my life had been a morning deer, right, which is the opposite of most bow hunters are. You go in for the afternoon and the evening. Yeah, let's talk strategies a little bit. You're a great bow hunter. So what do you do that brings you success?
Wind is the thing. Yeah. With the wind at your back, I don't care where you are, you're not going to see much. They're just too smart. They got too many things going from them. The sensors are right up there. And of course I have some boys that set everything up for me. So, and I don't know how it worked out, but I always seem to end up with the best spots. So that's my strategy. Have more kids. But yeah, the boys have become very smart at what they're doing, and being game wardens, the two of them know all the tricks, and but everybody's super smart when it comes to deer hunting because it's the passion. Mm-hmm. So you put a lot of time into something that's your passion, and if you got to work, I mean that's something else. But what you like doing, you put a lot more into it. Picking the right trails, getting your predominant wind, and food source, of course, is a big deal. Food source, until a rut comes along, right? But if you really need a basic plan, when the rut comes on, you hunt where the doe are, and because the deer are going to be tracing back and forth through that area. When I hunted Maine, it was all about you follow a deer in the snow, to be a bunch of doe, and then you see a straight line buck track to the next spot where there's a whole bunch of milling around with doe, and then a straight line to the next one. No fooling around. They know where they are.
Just scent checking them all.
Yep. Yeah. That's it. And they'll do that all the time. Your chances of picking something up are pretty good if you've got them on that trail. And they're going to follow those same trails. Those deer are going to be basically the same place all the time.
Yeah.
And I learned that a lot in Maine because I hunt alone a lot in Maine and very little snow, but I could still, even without the snow, you can tell that they're going from here to there to there,
Yep.
and they'll be back sometime.
Yep.
You just have to be there when they come back, right? But if you don't have any favorite spots, but you see doe all the time, and you had to pick a spot, that would be the place to be. Yep.
Yep. So you're hunting around here every season, right?
Right.
You're hunting around here. Hunting's been pretty good. So, those places now where the doe normally are holding up. Your stand's probably, southeast of the trails, right? Because the northwest wind is the predominant wind.
Yeah, the great way, of course, is to have two stands, right? One on each side, wind side.
Yep.
But now you get limited space. You've got to be 500 feet away from here or whatever. You got limited distances that you can be in suburbia. Yeah, in the big woods, I mean, it's easy. You have two places set up.
Yeah.
So I can hunt either wind, and it depends on your choices. How many places do you have, and how many do you burn out?
Yeah.
And do you deliberately stay away from places so that you don't stink it out? And I've seen it time and time again. I see this big buck. I know they're going to be here all the time, and you sit there 2-3 days in a row. The first time, people tell you, the first time you're there is going to be your luckiest time, generally, and then the second time. But 2 or 3 years ago, we were on this one farm, and all the buck sign was on where I was, where he just put up a new tree stand, and I had seen two big bucks come through there from the other side, and so I sat there 3 days. After 3 days, not one buck went by. They were all way across on another field following the river.
Yep.
So they get smart fast.
Yeah.
So you've got to have the chances to move around and let the place rest for a while.
Yeah.
But wind is a thing, it doesn't do you any good to be sitting with the wind blowing to where you think they're going to be.
Most important thing, I think, with bow hunting, is playing that wind.
Because you got to be close.
Yeah.
And we don't take any long shots, and don't even practice beyond 40 yards. But I've got an advantage or a disadvantage now. I'm not sure which, but I blew out my bicep.
Yeah.
And my bicep muscle now is up on my shoulder because all of the tendons that hold it on are separated. And I still hunted like that with a compound bow, but every year, pull it back, I could feel that twinge in the muscle that's up inside my shoulder here.
Yeah.
And I know eventually it was going to get where it was going to snap again, whatever was holding it in place. So advantage, disadvantage, crossbow.
When did you switch over to the crossbow?
4 years ago, about 4 years ago. Yeah. Actually, I borrowed my granddaughter's bow and crossbow and started with that one until I graduated to getting a man's bow.
So is that
it was pink.
That 2019 deer. So one neat thing was going to look at your trophy room. We'll put a little bit of that footage in the beginning of this podcast, but that you got a nice one in 2019, and I feel like I know most of the deer around, or you always feel like, well, you got cameras in a bunch of different places, you would know them all, and it looked like a deer that when I first moved that I shot at in 2019, nice buck, and I missed it. It was about 40 yards, and that was one of my first years bow hunting too. I shouldn't have even ever taken that shot, but it was long as it was, and he was behind a little bit of brush that I couldn't see with my naked eye at that time in the morning. It looked like he stepped into the open. I missed it. That video has, 380,000 views or something. It was before I started any of this stuff on a personal YouTube account, but I went back and looked at it. I think it is that buck that you ended up shooting. Probably
they've got limited places they can go.
Yeah, a couple weeks later, and it was a beautiful deer, scored in the 130s. But it was cool to actually see that rack.
Yeah, now you see it.
I'm pretty sure.
I'm glad to see it on my wall.
I just like getting my hands. If you know a deer,
oh sure,
I don't care who shoots it. I think that's
right.
There are so many people that aren't like that are so competitive or feel like they possess a deer or something, and
right.
I'd like to get a look at it no matter what, and I don't care if it's any whoever shoots it, as long as they did it legally, then it's like, hey, great job, man. That's all about being a sportsman.
That's right. Yeah, cameras. You're talking about cameras. Like,
Yep.
I finally broke down way back and bought a buckshot. Do you remember the buckshot camera?
No,
Oh, that was massive camera. The trail camera was this big. And
I saw one of those.
I still got mine.
I saw one, and I'll have to. You probably didn't leave
And
it
you
in
had
the
to
woods, but
develop
somebody
the film.
left it. Yeah.
You had to develop the film and everything. They've come a long way. Got a lot of cameras now, and because now every year they come out with something better and better and better.
Yep.
But
So you don't shy away from the advancing technology then?
oh no,
Yeah.
no, I like to see them too.
Yeah.
Because hunting is a 365-day passion.
Yes,
Right?
yeah.
It's not deer season.
Yes.
It's and we tell everybody, fishing is what we do while we're waiting to go hunting.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And that kind of explains a lot. Right. We love fishing.
Yeah. Me too.
Love hunting more. And it's
Do you
something
turkey
we
hunt,
have
too?
to do, right?
Do you turkey hunt to wait for deer
Oh,
season?
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Turkey hunting is to pass the time until you can go fishing, which is to
Right.
pass the time until deer season.
Imagine if they ever take all this away from us.
Oh
I mean,
man,
there's people out there trying to do it.
I wouldn't be the same. You wouldn't be
Nope.
the same. We would lose a huge part of who we are.
I hardly ever swear, but if that ever happens, it's going to be my daily thing.
Yeah.
And people are trying to do it. Leave me alone, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what hunting is. Leave me alone,
Yeah.
right? I want to be by myself. I want to be doing this, but I got the greatest hunting partners, right? Family.
Yeah.
Right? It's always been family. When other people, friends or whatever, got involved, wonderful to have friends there. But family is who you can trust, and family who you chase a big deer or know there's a big deer there, and you go after them for 2 years, and a friend gets them. Yeah, good for them. Well, I'm pissed. Family gets it. It's the same thing. Same as if I got it.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
It's exactly the same. And
Well, you've been fortunate to have a really big family.
yeah. Oh yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
lots of hunting partners.
And I got a wife that goes along with everything, and she actually tried hunting one time, and my sons, their wives have hunted, and we got one son that his partner now, fiance, she tried hunting for the first time and was successful, and we got some moose hunting females in the family that have done well. So it's if you've got family, it's couldn't get any better.
Yeah.
Can't get any better than family.
No.
Looking forward to another 17 more years at least. That's the way I figure it. And as long as I can walk in there, and I've got this little dolly that I could be strapped into if someone would push me in
So
there.
what, you want to hunt till you're 100?
Oh, easy.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You're in good shape. You're I'm sure in a lot better shape than most 84-year-olds. I know
Oh, yeah.
that for a fact.
But I remember when I was 21, I was down the Cape in one of the long jetties that go out at when the harvest come in, and I was running all the way out to the end on those great big granite boulders, right? And I'm 21, and I remember plain as day. I was running, and I said, "How old are you when you can't do this anymore? Run." Well, I look at it now, and I look at it. I wouldn't be that dumb to do it anymore. You fall down in one of those holes. They're 9, 10 feet down there. You'd never.
Yeah.
Your arms would be twisted all up. You'd never hunt again. So, no, I wouldn't do it. But I don't feel any different than I did when I was 21.
Yeah.
And the passion's there. It's the butterflies that can't sleep. The next step could be the biggest deer I ever saw. I mean, I'll never lose that.
Right.
And the passion is there. I have to hunt. Right? I'd be a miserable person.
Oh yeah.
Right? And I know everybody else that's got the passion knows exactly what it is.
Yeah. It wasn't until about 6 years ago, I feel like, that I realized that hunting really is a 365.
It is.
Up until then, I'd go to Vermont and I'd hunt the 5 weekends up there, go to my deer camp there, and that's all I would do. And I thought at that point that's what hunting really was, and that was being a good hunter. But I think if you do think about it for 300 every single day, and you work on something every single day, even if you're just thinking, that's doing something. That's what's going to make you a good hunter. And I didn't realize that until 6 years ago. And then it all started kind of really clicking. Yeah. And then I got the bitten by the bug for real.
And then turkey season came. There were no turkeys back then either.
Yeah.
Right. And things have gotten better in some senses. It's just the general public is the bad side of what we do. And I'd say hope to see more people out there, but not really.
It's enough to keep it alive, right?
Yeah.
No.
But I this local area, it's getting to almost no place left to hunt. There really isn't. And because of people that are passionate like you and I, and a lot of people I know, they're passionate about it, that you're going to get crowded into other places, and what's next? So, and travel, you have to travel.
Yeah. And there is constant more development always happening. There's more apartment complexes getting put in, or condos, or houses being built. I mean, that is just constant. Last year I had a spot that I guess the last 2 years I've kind of been trying to learn it, and it was an overlooked place, for whatever reason. There's remnants of old hunting in there, from years past. Old stands, really old stands.
The old 2x4s and plywood.
Yep, and then there's this ladder I've never seen before. Like it comes down off the tree angled, but it's step ladder on different sides with pegs coming out.
Yeah,
and it must have been a product at some point. But that at some point that was a newsstand. That's in this place. And I came back from hunting in North Dakota, and when I left for North Dakota, I put a camera up in there, and I came back to check it, and so it's like mid-September, and all of a sudden everything's different. Entire 40 to 50 acres were flattened, and I was like, oh, here we go. It's going to be an apartment complex, or something's going to be put in there, and I'm not going to be able to hunt it. And it's a great funnel spot, and some of the biggest bucks I have on camera going through there, and there's some nice scrapes, and I was really excited about this spot. And that place that got flattened was all posted. I couldn't hunt that spot, but there was postage stamps around it that you could hunt legally, and I've been hunting it for the last couple of years, just here and there. So I get back, and that whole posted area is flattened. And I'm like, well, whatever. As soon as the house is built there, I'm not going to be able to hunt there. I'm going to be within the 500 feet of these new houses, I can tell. Right. But come to find out, it's not a house. It's a solar field. So at least that place is still going to be huntable.
Yep. Good.
Which, but the woods are constantly going to change. There's still going to be developments. And it's just all part of that game, that suburban hunting game. But that does make for less area to hunt.
Right.
Especially if it was an apartment complex, then you're narrowing down. That postage stamp's wiped out if that happens.
Because I've heard talk now and then that Massachusetts is hopefully going to change the rule about the 500 feet.
Yeah, that would be a good one.
To a bow, 300 feet at least. Some because that means you got to be more than 1,000 feet of space, because you got to be 500 from one side or the other.
Right.
Plus land to hunt in. So.
Yeah.
That's getting to be a big piece of property nowadays.
1,500 feet probably before you could even really. Yep.
And then feel comfortable,
Right.
Not worried about what if he runs over there, and what do you do? And, people say you're on my property, or
But the cool thing about the Northeast is we can bounce around. You can drive 3 hours any direction and hunt different ways, and hunt different territory and different types of deer and everything.
And populations are up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. The hunting really is great right now, anywhere, in 3 hours any direction.
Right. But now it's turkey season.
I don't turkey hunt.
You don't turkey hunt?
No.
Good.
No. I knew it. I knew that I wouldn't be able to. It'd be another obsession. I know that it's addicting. People love it. It would be something that I would, once I started, I would have to get really good at it, and then I know that would take away from me doing the podcast or hunt stock or even deer hunting.
Can only hunt till noontime.
And the family as well. I know you can only hunt till noon.
Oh yeah, you got a young family coming.
I just know that would get me into trouble if I got into it. So
you got boys or girls?
I got a boy and a girl. So my son is almost 3, and the girl is just a couple months old now.
Yeah. One of my sons, his daughter's hunting, and she's got elk, deer, and turkeys, and So it's not just for the male side
yeah.
of things.
Yeah, I hope she gets into it too.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure she will. What's the choice?
Yeah.
Right.
Well, now that you taught me that trick,
Yeah, I know.
I'm going to deliberately do the.
Yeah.
Yep. Leave one.
Build it
on.
up.
Yep.
Build it up real big, and pitiful watching them know when it happens. So.
Yeah, but it's a good. That is a good learning learning experience for sure. Right. Yeah.
And it gives you special time with whoever's still there. You know.
Yep.
And you start to get more and more numbers of children, it spreads out, but you still, the whole thing is to make every child you have think that you think they're special.
Yep.
Right?
Right.
So that's it.
Yep. Right. So I saw a lot of different animals in your trophy room. You've killed elk, caribou, moose, deer. I'm just talking antlered animals. I know you killed coyotes and turkeys and stuff too, but yeah, it's something I hear from people is, once they hunt elk, I can. That's all I would ever want to do. Now, do you? And then there's other people who have done it, and they're like, oh, it was great, but still, I've got this thing for whitetail deer.
Yeah.
So what's your
whitetail deer still?
Yeah.
And mine now is even more than ever because now, the boys and I hunt together in Kentucky. Come from different places, and we all meet there and hunt there. It's the camaraderie of family and hunting.
Yep.
So both things you're passionate about are right there. But elk hunting is something else. It really is. It's if you're turkey hunting and you're calling and they're answering, elk are the same way. It can be a disadvantage, but I'm just saying you do know they're there. They're talking, you're talking. Then the chase is on, and again we're with family doing it anyway. Because you need help when things happen. We've been successful, really successful, and nothing like a big elk rack that weighs 50 pounds, and it's pretty good.
So so sometimes you don't call when you're elk hunting because that's what you see these days. Like any of the content and stuff, most of them it's that you're calling for elk and that's it, not ambush, pick a stand, whatever. So what have you? I get the sense that you've done both.
The more you call, the least chance you got. Our general consensus is you call one time, and they know where you are. But if you keep it up, all you're doing is telling the big bull where you are and go the other way. It's just strictly locate and then hunt them from there, and then try to outsmart them, right? And find the water. I mean, with elk, it's all about the water. And being in areas where there are elk. And they can be there one day, not the other, but I'm saying in general. And they taste good.
Yeah.
They do. Yeah.
Well, the water, I noticed that. The only time I've ever been anywhere where elk are was this past season in North Dakota. And they were hanging out in the river, washing in the river, flopping around in there, staying cool. But they were hanging out on that river, every single day.
And we got videos, and almost all of them relate to water, being in there. And people don't realize how bad that water smells. It smells like sewer.
Yeah.
Because they've urinated in it so much and the smell, but they just want to be as stinky as they can get.
Yeah.
And they do stink.
Yeah.
But it's still back to deer hunting.
Oh, yeah. Now, calling. So what do you do? Do you call for deer at all?
Just use a cow call, a doe call.
Yeah.
Just do use the can once in a while.
Yeah.
But I'm not a big caller. I know the boys do the calling, rattling, and whatever. Just counting on being in the right place and them letting me have the best stands, which happens.
Yeah. That's respect right there.
Yeah, it is. No.
Yeah.
And I say if you want respect, just go hunting with my sons. So. It works out pretty good.
Yeah. Do you guys hunt near scrapes? Do you have any strategy about scrapes? Do you particularly?
It depends on where you're hunting. Kentucky, we're just trying to find out where they're traveling, and stay where they're traveling. Nice to see the buck rows, nice to see the sign that they're there, but cameras now take the place of all of that.
Yeah.
Your cameras tell you everything you want to know.
Yeah.
Right? So if you got a camera out and they're going by, they're not scraping or they're rubbing, it doesn't matter. It's right there in front of you. Picture or video, whichever one you want.
Yeah.
So it's taken the place of a lot the cameras have.
So when do you go out there and put your cameras up?
We got in that particular instance, now we have one son that moved near there.
Okay.
So he's retired, and so he's been on retired vacation for a long time. So he's nearby, and
He does the scouting duty for you
right.
guys. Yeah.
And other sons will go out early and set things up and get things going. But once we get there, we dedicate at least a full day, to setting up. Don't worry about hunting. We know the deer are going to be there, and when you go in, but it's take that whole day, definitely at least one day, and set up correctly so you don't have to worry about it for the rest of the hunt. Right?
Yep.
So,
Go around, check cameras and stuff too.
Yep.
That's probably one of the most fun days. Is the anticipation.
It is, but we get cameras. One son has cameras set up all the time, but what we're finding out, we got dogs patrolling the property every day, which, if I'm going to swear, it'd be about that. They can do a lot of damage. Just every day they're there. Chase them off, get the young ones, bother the turkeys, find the eggs. Who knows? It's just not a good deal. And you would think that the owners would have more compassion for their animals, because things, they hit the wrong person. Those dogs. They're not just on our property; they're other people's property, and there could be consequences for it, right? And they just don't seem to care. That's too bad.
So you're talking domesticated dogs, not
domesticated
coyotes.
dogs. Yeah. Coyotes do their own damage.
Yeah.
But not like 3 dogs running on the property every day.
Yeah.
What they'll do, with Maine, of course, Maine, the whole theory there a lot, especially northern Maine, is coyotes causing all the damage, and black bear. But I believe it. I find too many animals that, have been torn apart. I just went out back of my house the other day and found 4 dead deer.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, 4. And we had one we had 2 with broken legs, but they were surviving. And when I'm checking out, when I see them, I check for their rump in the wintertime. Their rump will be nice and round, or their rump will be, you can see where the hip bones and everything are. But just watching that, right, just before the tail on their back, if it's smooth there, they're doing pretty good.
Yep.
And our deer they have food year round. We don't have harsh winters, and so they are healthy regardless. So, and one son told me to break some bones and see what the marrow was like. If it's red, then they died of starvation, which I don't think happens around here. And they weren't. It was just a gray matter.
One of the game warden sons, or biologists.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and the one, I thought maybe one was one of the wounded ones that we had seen, and but
did you find the skulls?
Yeah, everything's there.
All doe?
3 of them were doe, 1 I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
1, they had scattered everything out pretty good.
Yeah.
There is a big coyote den there, and coyotes did grab my neighbor's dog right in front of her and run off with it and
Really?
killed it. Yeah.
Wow. Small dog?
Yeah, it was one of the little Shih Tzus or whatever you call them, a little thing.
Yeah.
And they got another dog to match it, but the horror was that she was right there.
That would be terrible.
He come out of my yard and ran over and grabbed him, and off he went. So they are there, and we hear them at night. You can hear 'em.
That'll turn an anti-hunter into a hunter real fast. You watch a coyote drag your dog out, though.
No, we got good neighbors, though.
Yeah, that's good.
But can't. My wife says we can't shoot our pet deer, and there's not enough property there anyway.
Well, it's so tying into a couple of things we were just talking about. I was in Maine last week, and with Scotland, my friend who's pretty new to hunting, and my partner in hunt stock, Pat Burns, and we're scouting this area. We wanted to go shed hunting. Northern Maine still had tons of snow, so we were staying all the way up in Jackman. But our plan on the one day that we had before the event we were up there for, we had all of Friday to do something. We got up early. We drove south until there was no snow anymore, and found a big chunk of land next to a swamp, and went in to shed hunt that. And even down there, 2 hours, 3 hours south of Jackman, you're in big,
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Compared to around here,
Right.
The woods are pretty endless, even down there. So we're walking through. And every time I see a carcass or a bunch of deer here, I always try to find the head, because you never know. It could be a buck. And
Right.
we saw one carcass, checked the head, it was a doe. Second one we ended up finding later in the day had bear scat. Well, it looked like bear scat there, so I think it was killed by a bear,
Right.
not a coyote. The first one was coyotes, all kinds of coyote sign in there, but there was bear scat there, and it just happened to be a pretty good buck. It was, probably a 3 or a 4 year old, had a nice rack. It was a deadhead, so you definitely know the bear. It's odd though, because I think that buck must have been in the prime. He was 3 or 4. He wasn't super old. He had really small feet, but a nice rack.
Yeah.
And it's just wondering, I guess.
Teeth were sharp.
Yeah, he had young teeth, sharp teeth. Yep,
yeah.
sharp teeth. He looked.
Yeah.
He looked to me. I think he was a 3-year-old deer, but he had tiny feet, like a yearling almost. He had real small feet.
Wow.
But you hear that the bear will take fawns and will take real young deer, but a mature buck, he had to have been injured or sick or something.
Yeah.
But I always try to, if you find hair, look around for the head, because it might be just a real nice buck.
Yeah.
You might walk up on something cool.
Yeah, I found up in Vermont where we have a house up there that I go in the woods there looking around, and I found 3 bucks in a row without antlers. Just the stubs on them.
Yep.
And
so after they shed, they die.
After they shed, couldn't survive the winter. Right? Because they can have some tough times up there. 20 below for 2 weeks. It's pretty tough. And when we first started going to Vermont, it was really odd that the deer yard was right there. I mean, within sight of the house. And we come up on one place, and we were actually driving, and we looked, and it was March. So I think the deer have more trouble in March than any other time. And it was raining, and they were steaming. All the deer that we could see, steam was coming off them. They had lost all their natural oil. Mm-hmm. So now they freeze to death from that. So and then we went in that general area, came back, and we went in there. We found 12 or 13 dead deer in there. Fresh died from malnutrition, losing their oil. So March is a tough time. March and April.
Yeah, and we that first day before we went and found the area with no snow, we were driving up, and we were just looking at a deer yard map and found a place where they were supposed to be yarding. On our way up to Jackman, pulled over, got permission from a lady whose place abutted it. She was somebody who moved up there from Long Island during the pandemic.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. And with her son who lives there, and I started talking with him. Just a quick aside, and so how you liking it up here? He was like, man, it's brutal. Like, it's a rough life. They didn't, like a lot of people that fled the cities during the pandemic to get out in the middle of nowhere and not realizing how hard of a life it can be.
Winter's comes 3 weeks earlier and lasts 3 weeks longer. And that 3 weeks longer is the brutal part.
Yeah,
I've had it.
If we think it's hard, and then you think about being a whitetail deer, because I'm walking through that yard. The snow is 3-4 feet everywhere, and except for the paths that they beat down, and then you get into the real thick evergreens where they, can lay down on it enough to melt the snow, so they've got some place to lay down. Mm-hmm. But just you would see carcasses, and then I was surrounded by a couple coyotes, one just following along a swamp through this yard. Couple coyotes. They weren't scared of me. They were just kind of going this way, one coming lower, and just kind of running around me. But when the deer yard up, it can be pretty easy pickings for those coyotes.
Everybody goes to the restaurant, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The deer go to the restaurant, and the coyotes come to the restaurant.
Yep.
Right.
A hard life.
It is, yeah. So, we're looking for sunnier places.
Yeah. Kentucky can be pretty sunny, can't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
But it gets cool.
Yeah.
We check out. We got this weather thing, and we check every place that we go to. We check the weather on it, and they're milder, but still can get cold there.
Yep.
But it's a great place to be if you want to be out, without a lot of people around. It's the least thing that's a problem.
Yeah.
And these big companies are buying up they're just going sending out letters to everybody and trying to grab up as much property as they can. Hunting's changing.
I'll tell you, that's what I liked a lot about North Dakota, though, was that there was nobody, I think it's one of the least populated states in the union. Well, it is one of the least populated states in the union, and then when you look at density, it's right up there with Wyoming as maybe the least or second. So you really get out there, and you don't have anybody around.
Right.
So that was cool.
Yeah.
It's a nice feeling. Get away from people.
I took all the boys for Christmas out to the Olympic Peninsula hunting elk out in Washington on the peninsula. That was a great time.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. That was no people.
Yeah.
No people in any restaurant we went to. No people in any hotel that we went to.
There's grizzly bears out there, isn't there?
Oh, yeah. But hunted British Columbia a lot with grizzly bears. And I was with a person that got a grizzly bear that was stalking us. So got a lot of things on video. Just don't have my videos. I got them scattered all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to track those down because that's precious stuff.
It is. Yeah.
Lanny Benoit from the Benoit family sent. We just got all of his. He's going through the process. He wants to digitize all their old tapes, and we got them sent. To one of the projects that me and Pat will be working on is getting all that stuff converted from all those old tapes to digital files so that it can be sorted and cataloged and eventually released or whatever. Just having it, because those old tapes can deteriorate, and
they do.
You could lose it just from bad storage or whatever. So
yeah, we did a lot of video, and now to pull it all back together again, it's all scattered.
Yeah.
And I made some excerpts of different things, like 2 minutes of this and 2 minutes of that. But to go back, in the old days, I had plenty of time to do a lot of things. Like one of them was do the videos and set them up, but can't seem to find that time anymore. Right. Always a busy life. So it's good.
Yeah. What can you tell the story of that buck that I think was the one I missed that you shot a couple of weeks later? So do you remember that hunt? And
for sure. Yeah. I went at nighttime, the afternoon hunt, and we just got back. It was like middle of November, and got out there as quick as I could because the place where I hunted got permission because of the deer were devastating all of the vegetation. So got very limited to where I could be. And he came across one road that he had to, because I saw him as he got into the woods where I was. And he come down this hill, down into a draw. And he had his nose on the ground, and he had that stiff-legged walk like we all know. When I first started hunting, it was all walking, stalking.
Yeah.
And when you saw something, it was like 3 seconds of everything. So that's all you saw. You saw a jump up, maybe you saw a flag, and maybe you saw an opening, you'd take a shot. Tree stand hunting opened my eyes to a lot of things because now you get to see almost everything. You get to see it coming. You get to see how they act. You get to see how every good hunter that's seen it can tell a buck from a doe almost immediately, just from the way they walk and their makeup. And the structure of their body is different, even though they're genetically the same. And to see him coming with his nose down, right away I knew.
You can tell by the sound, too, a lot of times, just by the sound of how they're walking.
That's right.
Without seeing them.
And
the buck's coming.
When he got in closer, the closest he got to me, you could hear the breathing. You could hear the every time he stepped, because that stiff-legged walk seems to change things on them, right? And he evidently was on a hot doe, because I've seen them do the walk, but they do it more obvious when they are on that scent. And then he turned and started to go away, and I had one opening, same old classic thing, one little opening, and just hoping he went to it, and he made the mistake. But the best part was I could see through the trees. I could see his white belly when he was kicking, when he went over.
Yep.
And he still on the property that I had permission on, which is nice, right?
Yep.
And seen a lot of deer and shot a lot of deer. And when you walk up onto them, what's on my mind now is it going to be ground shrinkage? But this deer was actually the opposite, because I only saw that broadside thing basically. When he got where I could see him really well, he had the side view, which makes a deer look smaller than it really is in a lot of cases.
Yep.
And when I walk up on him from behind, which is the best view, right? Yeah, he looked pretty good.
Yeah, they always do look great from behind, for sure.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
I take all my pictures from behind now. But yeah, that was called my wife, and she came out, and we dragged it out, and then right at the last minute we had someone else come out, and So we got some nice pictures of us in the dark dragging a deer out together. So.
Did you have to stop him anywhere? Did you grunt to stop him, or he just...
No, because you know the thing with stopping them. They always seem to stop if you're in the thick things, which I was. He got into the thick before I could get maneuvered, or he was close enough for a shot. And when he got in there, I don't dare do it at that point because I know they're going to stop right when I can't do anything. Then what happens?
Yeah.
Right. Then it's standoff, and
Yeah.
of course, you know, that little, just before they move, you'll see that little flick of the tail just before they take their step. And he did almost stop on his own, and he like routed, you know, like with his nose, he moved something. And then I saw the tail flick, and then I was right on that little 2 or 3 feet up ahead of him. And when he got there, he kind of like just stopped for a split second and turned to look to his left.
Yeah.
And that's when I shot him.
So you were actually probably lucky that you didn't grunt to stop him, because I had an interaction with him probably just days before you shot him. We'll do the forensics on it later, and I'll have to tell you about it because I'll have the actual day. I still have the raw video of that, but everything that you're saying, it's exactly how this deer came. He had this stiff-legged. He was just on a pace walk when I first saw him. He was 60 yards out of range, and he was going down and away. And I ended up rattling him to come back, and he came back, but he knew exactly where I was. And every time he stopped, he was right behind a tree, and he kept brush in between me and him the entire time. And when he got his closest, he stopped, and he was there it was 7 minutes behind the tree without moving because he just wouldn't take another step. If he did, he was right into my open spot, and he would have been dead. Yeah. He stopped right before he had that sense. He just knew. Yep. And then he turned after 7 minutes of standing there in the same spot. There were our neighbors came out, dogs were barking. He didn't care. He was just like, all right, something's not right. He turned and went back that same way, keeping the brush between us. I took a crappy shot, as you know, but if you watch that video, it does that same walk. You'll remember the walk. You'll just see how he was walking.
And
there.
You see that from a tree stand.
Yeah.
Walking, stalking, you don't get to see.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. And it's just kind of let them do their natural thing, and because once they stay, my experience, if he stayed there 7 minutes, he wasn't going any further.
Right.
You know, they never do.
Exactly.
They never go any further. Mm-hmm. And the other thing I noticed that if they quickly turn their head left and right when they stop, that's it. They're done. Mm-hmm. They don't know, so they're not going to go anymore. You know? Simple things. But that tail is a dead giveaway that they're going to take that step.
Yeah. Once it does, they have the flicker. Yep.
That's it.
They relax again. You're like, oh, okay.
But they can do strange things. You know, back in '86 or '89, I shot the second biggest buck in Massachusetts for the record book, and back then 144 was number 2. Yep. And it would have been number 1, but it had a kicker that was 1 1/8 inches. Yep. So that 1 1/8 inches gave me 1 1/8 inches deduction. Yep. And I was only 1 inch under the state record. Yep. And
the net. Yeah.
But he did strange things. He come up. I got into an area that I'm fairly new to, and I. Quickly, I'll tell a story, is that I had Tink's 69, and I saw him working with a doe going back and forth out in front of me, and it was on a little bit of a hill. So I took Tink's 69, I sprayed on a little evergreen about 3 foot tall, and I got up in one of these trees with my board that I'm talking about, you know, that with the notches in it, and sat there, but I had to sit on it with 1 foot on a thing, which was pretty good. That deer came up, and I really didn't realize I didn't have a shot at that tree. He came up to that tree and stood over the tree and rubbed his belly back and forth on that tree. Huh. He just back and forth, you know, he just kept rocking back and forth on that tree. Yeah. And then when he took 1 step further, that's when I shot him. So that was a great day because he ran into a swamp, and I just picked the right direction to go because I couldn't find blood after a while in the water and stuff that was there. And I picked left, and he had gone left, and I only went 25 yards, and he was there. So got lucky that day.
That's great, yeah.
I think of that all the time.
You can lose a lot of deer in swamps.
Yep. I picked the right way to go. Right.
Yep. So. Yeah, it's if you can't, and a lot of these deer don't bleed. Was one thing I didn't realize until, again, that 6 years ago or whatever that year was where it started clicking. you just really started reading the woods the right way and dedicating a lot of time to studying deer and just living that lifestyle. I didn't realize that when you're a gun hunter, there's, where a bow hunter would back out because you can read blood and stuff, and
Right.
you don't want to push the deer because then you might never find them again. I wonder how many deer we lost over the years from deer camp in Vermont because you shoot and immediately you follow up
Sure.
and look for the blood and you expect to see them. No, 85% of the time the deer's dead after you shoot him with a rifle. He's going to be dead. But there's some other times where you can read the blood and be like, oh, man, all right, back out. But you don't think about that as a gun hunter.
Right.
And then there's also a bunch of times where you don't see any blood at all, but it also could be a dead deer.
Right.
They don't all bleed.
Yeah, I don't give up.
Yep.
No.
So,
Good.
yep. So anything else you want to
No, I think it's long enough now.
Okay. Hey, it was awesome to meet you. Thanks for coming in.
Oh yeah,
Now
glad
we
to
know
do
we're
it.
not too far away. We can
Right.
do it again sometime, and we'll,
Yeah, tell me where your spots are, and I'll meet you.
I will.
sometime.
Hey, I'm very open about that. We'll keep in touch.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Right. Thanks for having me. Right.
All right, this episode is brought to you by Hunt Stock. Hunt Stock is entering its second year. It is much bigger and better in planning than the first year was, even though the first year was amazing. This year we've added quite a few new speakers and content creators and some really big name sponsors. So I just want to go through that a little bit and give you guys some updates on Hunt Stock. So for content creators, new content creators that are coming this year, we'll just go over the big names because there's a lot of smaller pages which we always want to have and encourage to come and learn and give them a catalyst to grow bigger. But we're gonna just kind of go high level on the big names that are coming. So Rodney Elmer and his crew over there, the Wolf Pack from Mountain Deer, they're coming down to Hunt Stock to do live pod. They got a podcast. They'll do a live podcast. We'll be getting them into seminars and maybe teaching some classes in the outdoor classroom as well. All the final details on all of these content creators will come out later, but we're super excited to have Rodney and the Wolf Pack from Mountain Deer coming down this year. Also, Hunting Me, short for Hunting Maine, John Altman, Will Altman, Josh Leach, that whole clan, tremendous sportsmen. They put the best quality videos out that I've seen in the Northeast. Obviously, Will Altman is a tremendous videographer, and he's just an artist with the camera. And those guys work with some great editors as well. They just put out awesome, high quality studio quality production. So we're super excited to have them down as well. They'll be doing something with seminars and the outdoor classroom as well. We are also bringing in Joe DeNitto and the Adirondack tracking contingent. We're excited to have those guys come on this year. I was actually on the phone with Joe when I was out shed hunting. And when I found the matching side, I don't know if you guys can see that in this video, but the matching side to that split G3 buck, whose side I had found a couple weeks earlier, I was on the phone with Joe talking over the details and walked up on it. So he told me he owns half that shed, which I'm totally cool with, man. You can have it at your booth at Hunt Stock the whole weekend anyway. He brought good luck. But we're excited to have some more of the Adirondack contingent. There's a couple other Adirondack groups coming as well. A YouTube page, 80K Tracker, which is separate from DeNitto's group, but also Great Trackers. They'll be there. Adirondack Bucks and Beyond, they'll be coming as well. There's a lot of content creators coming that weren't there last year, and big names, big groups. So we're super excited about that. On the sponsorship side, we have been working really hard to bring some national brands into the fold. So we're excited that Vortex is coming. Vortex will be there with a large space, a 20 by 20 footprint. They're going to be showcasing all their different optics. They're donating a ton of door prizes. I think 3 different types of binoculars, a spotting scope, a tripod for a spotting scope, some swag, a couple rangefinders. I mean, they're coming in a really big way. We're excited to have Vortex. We also have Ruger coming. And Ruger's coming in a big way as well. They're getting a big space. They'll be displaying their guns. Obviously, it being Massachusetts, for any people keeping tabs on that. Firing pins will be removed and all that, so they're not technically guns, to make sure that we're in line with everything. But Ruger will be coming. 6 Hour and 6 Hour Academy are coming with a big footprint, also a 20 by 20. All of these gun brands are donating to the door prizes as well. I believe Ruger's doing 2 guns, Mossberg's doing 2, 6 Hour's doing 2, Woodman Arms is going to be there. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Ruger, 6 Hour, Mossberg also coming. They're going to be kind of attached to the Just Hunt Club booth, bringing a 10 by 10, donating a scoped 270 with a walnut stock with a Vortex scope on it. Plus a turkey shotgun. So we're super excited to have Mossberg there as well. We have Darn Tough coming. Darn Tough socks, the best socks I've ever worn in my life. I'm partial a little bit because I'm from Vermont and they're made in Vermont and been a Vermont company. But they really are the best quality sock I've ever worn. Lifetime warranty on them. They're going to be giving away $5,000 worth of socks over the weekend for people who stop by their booth. It's worth your price of admission, $40 just to go in and get a free pair of Darn Tough socks. Anyway, Trophy Line and Red Line, they're kind of sister brother companies there. Trophy Line will be there with their whole line of saddle equipment, plus their backpacks. Kuiu is coming. Kuiu doesn't go out to very many events in the Northeast. They're a big Western brand, obviously, but there's a big contingent of people in the Northeast who wear Kuiu. And since they don't have any physical retail locations, when they go to an event, it kind of doubles. It's a big deal, right? It's the only place people can go and feel and try on products before buying it. So Kuiu will be there. We're excited to have Kuiu this year. They're going to have a sweet 20 by 20 display as well, doing it big, and they're donating some awesome door prizes. Sherman Cookers will be back in a big way. They make the cast iron outdoor cookers, awesome products. White Duck Outdoors, they make wall tents and all kinds of outfitter tents. Last year, if you came to Huntstock, you saw one of their tents up, even though it didn't get utilized that much because not many people participated in the gear exchange. This year, we're converting that wall tent to an outdoor classroom that's going to have all kinds of awesome curriculum that you can learn from professors like Hal Blood and Lanny Benoit and Rodney Elmer and Joe DeNitto and John Altman. And it's going to be transformed into an awesome, intimate setting. Probably can fit 20, 25 people max for close-up sessions with awesome professors of hunting deer in the Northeast. So White Duck's coming. They're also going to be there with a big display showing all the other tents that they have. We've got some great wildlife artists. Of course, Josh Durant, wildlife art is coming back. David Wisman, really great artist. He's coming. That's a part of Huntstock we want to grow over the years too, is we want more artists and craftsmen to be showing up with their hunting and outdoors related crafts and artwork. So excited about all that. I am sure that I am probably missing some more sponsors. There are a couple that I've got to get back in touch with here who have given me verbals yeses, but have been hard to get back in touch with, that I really, really want to announce, but I can't yet until we get things official there. But Huntstock, man, it's going to be awesome this year. It is Been working really, really hard. Pat Burns has been working really hard with me. The farm has been making awesome improvements. Wildwood Farm sending me pictures. They built an awesome patio where that outdoor bar was last year. Thursday night we're having our VIP party, but then Friday night and Saturday night we're having after parties at the farm that start right after the door prizes are drawn. We're going to have live music. We're bringing live music in this year. We always said Huntstock, the name, it's in the name. It was made as the blend of like Woodstock for hunters, that Woodstock festival, something that was, legendary. That was that first Woodstock event that turned into this staple every single year. And it was just how it was a coming together of people to share in what they love. That's the whole theme behind Huntstock. It's a coming together of hunters and brands, and to learn and teach and share in camaraderie and everybody coming together for a whole weekend. So we're bringing in the music component this year. It's not going to be like 20 bands or anything like that, but we will have live music, at least for the after parties on the outdoor stage. So Wildwood Farm been sending me the pictures. I got to go see it in person here shortly, but beautiful patio they built. They are just making some really great improvements that we can't wait to show you at Huntstock. The 3D archery course, we might be changing the route a little bit, but it's going to be the same type of thing we did last year. 20 targets. Keep it so that it's not going to take you all day to go out and shoot, and you can still come into the festival, enjoy everything that we've got going on there. So we're doing it short on purpose. It'll be 20 targets again, maybe a little bit different route, same type of scoring system. The archery games concept we did with the Air Force, we will be bringing that to Huntstock in some shape or form. Whether the Air Force is sponsoring it or not, I'm not sure yet, but that will be there, and I'm hoping to announce some prize money for that as well. So same type of thing we did at Springfield Show, where Friday and Saturday, or maybe just Friday, will be a qualifier round, and then the top 8 will advance into the championships and face off in a bracket style until there's a winner crowned. If we do prize money there, probably be top 3, maybe top 5. We'll win some prize money. And when I do prize money, I like to make it big to attract good shooters, to make it more exciting, to make it, a little bit more, give people some nerves, because if you're not really competing for anything, the nerves go away, and the nerves are what are going to make this an interesting and exciting sport. So Delta McKenzie is sponsoring that. They're also sponsoring a 3D archery course again this year. We are upgrading any of the backyard targets from because there were a couple of those mixed in last year. First year event, we just couldn't get all pro targets out there, but this year every target out on the course is going to be the highest quality pro target that you can get from Delta McKenzie. Easton and Hoyt will be Hope and Hoyt will come with a boost space, but if not, they're going to be donating a bow to the door prizes. Easton and Delta McKenzie, brother sister companies there, they'll be working out of the same booth this year at Huntstock. What else? A couple more saddle brands that are coming: Vital Ground Outdoors, New York Saddle Hunter, and Hunt Light. Hunt Light being the only one returning from last year. Hang Free is having some growing pains, but good growing pains, where they just can't make the time to come up this year, but they will be back again in future years. So this year for the saddle area, it's going to be Trophy Line, Hunt Light, Vital Ground Outdoors, and New York Saddle Hunter. All of those brands donating awesome door prizes as well, but doing hands-on demos. So if you're interested in learning about saddle hunting, or you've been a saddle hunter and you just want to try some new products out, it's going to be a great place to do that. We're going with $25,000 to $30,000 in door prizes again. Probably end up being a lot more when we get down to it. We're going to be doing immersive experiences as usual. We'll do the butchering and field dressing, and then rolling into the blood dog tracking demonstration from a deer that we'll get from a farm. That's between Mass Wildlife, Brookline Cutting Barn, and UBT, United Blood Trackers. One of their blood tracking dogs, Freddie from New Hampshire, will give that experience again this year as well. There's a lot, trust me, a ton that I can't get into everything. Northeast Big Buck Club will be back again, of course. Hunt Stock will be back with the better merch this year. We're working on a whole bunch of new shirts, t-shirts, hats, hoodies, all that you can get there. Bow hunt mats will be back. 5th Season Outdoors will be back. We have, I think at this moment, we're at 82 to 85 sponsorship and exhibitor booths between content creators and sponsors, which is just incredible. That whole field is going to be filled with stuff this year. There's really there's too much to get into it all, but I think you can see already it's going to be a legendary year. It's going to be an awesome follow-up to what was a magical experience last year and the first year of the event. Friday, here's a big announcement. So Friday at 5 p.m. for people who are thinking that Hunt Stock is too expensive or whatever, which is crazy compared to just thinking about all the value that you get and all the work that goes into it. $40 is a steal to get into Hunt Stock, but if money's an issue, I know for some people. So on Friday, 5 p.m., it's going to be free for anybody after 5. So you can come check out Hunt Stock for the last couple hours on Friday on opening day. The sponsor village will be open until the door prizes are drawn, which I believe is at 7. So you'll have a couple hours of the sponsorship festival. You won't get door prize tickets with that free entry, but you can come and check it out and see what it's all about, and then stay for the after party, listen to some live music if you want, and then hopefully you're going to see how Hunt Stock, how awesome it is, and you'll want to come back on Saturday and Sunday and experience the full day. So Friday after 5 p.m., it's going to be free to the public. Just like last year, under 12, any kids under 12 are free to get in anyway. 12 and older, you have to pay the full price to get in, and everybody who comes in with a paid ticket will get a door prize entry for the day that you are there. If you buy a 3-day pass, you're going to get 3 door prize entries, and so on and so forth. So anyways, we're working hard on it. We're super looking forward to another awesome year at Hunt Stock. I know Pat Burns and I have been doing a lot of great work on it. The farm has been working really hard on it. Porter Dickinson's been helping out a lot. You're going to see his name around. He's going to be the festival manager this year. Take some of that running around that Pat Burns and I were doing last year. Take some of that off of our plate. Well, all of it off of our plate, hopefully, so that we have some more time to interact with everybody, spend quality time, and enjoy the experience ourselves. So big thanks to Porter for helping out there. And anybody who wants to volunteer, reach out to me. We've got that great volunteer program going again. The first, you volunteer 1 full day, you're going to get the rest of the days for free to Hunt Stock. You're going to get entered into the volunteer-only raffle, and it's just a really great experience. Last year, all the volunteers we had were awesome. I believe everybody enjoyed it. Most people are coming back. If they can't, there was just a scheduling conflict, but really treat the volunteers great. Most people actually end up volunteering for more than one day because they had so much fun volunteering, and the door prizes are great there too. So you want to volunteer, reach out. Send an email, huntsuburbia@gmail.com. Check out our website, huntstockevents.com. It's new. You can get all the up-to-date information there and click through to Ticket Leap from there to get your online tickets. But you will be able to buy tickets at the door. We're looking forward to it. We'll see you at Hunt Stock this year.